All right, your deep dive for this lesson is looking at isms. So that word right here, it's not even a word, but what I'm saying, isms. This is ISMS. So ISM, so ism, is a distinctive theory or set of beliefs or practices. So when you're thinking of isms, when you hear isms, what other kind of isms or different isms can you think of? For example, like commercialism or socialism. Maybe you were coming up with words like romanticism, Darwinism, patriotism, isolationism, optimism, pessimism, racism, spiritualism, realism. The words I have in bold are ones that I thought maybe you would be familiar with, maybe especially optimism, pessimism, racism, maybe spiritualism. The ones that aren't bolded are ones that just depends on if you were paying attention to the article you read. Darwinism totally depends on where you are when it comes to science and what Darwin believes. But optimism is if you're an optimistic person, you're a positive person, you always look at the glass as half full. You're always looking on the bright side of things. You have optimism. If you have pessimism, you're a pessimist, meaning that you think of things in the negative way. Kind of like the Debbie Downer of the group. You look at the glass as half empty, what you have lost, not what you still have. And then racism is obviously definitely in our minds almost every day. It's in the news every day. Can't escape it at the moment. Spiritualism just totally depends on how spiritual you are and if you have it. So kind of thinking like, again, why do we have so many isms of the world? If you look at isms, one of the main things is that we're people, and our world is made up of different kinds of people, and not two people think alike. So within that, there's different belief systems. So even in here, on this list here, there's tons of different belief systems, and it's not all spiritual based. It's just kind of like how you deal with life and your outlook on events and people and where you come from. So we're going to look at, in this deep dive, two particular isms. So you're going to look at article, the peace president goes to war, and I want you to look at paragraph 7. Paragraph 7 is this one. About another factor adding to European tensions was the rise of nationalism, a kind of patriotism gone wild. Nations infected with the dangerous feeling often felt superior to the other countries and jealous of their territories. So why am I having you look at this particular one? I want you to underline the word nationalism and patriotism, and then go back and kind of reread it. What clues do we have, what clues do we have to the meaning of the word nationalism and patriotism? Like what can we gather based on those context clues is what nationalism and patriotism might mean? And maybe you can kind of jot it off into the side of the article. You can even take a moment and write it in your notebook. It's totally up to you. But hopefully you're kind of thinking of things like the author says that nationalism is a kind of patriotism gone wild. And what does that mean? How can patriotism go wild? So it must be a more intense set of beliefs than just patriotism. And it's like, what does it mean to be a patriot or to have that belief of being a patriot? Words like infected and dangerous, did you notice those? Words like infected and dangerous are used to describe nationalism. So maybe it means that it is a negative set of beliefs or have some kind of bad consequences. The author, Dwayne Damon, writes that countries who had nationalist feelings felt superior to other countries and jealous of their territories. So maybe nationalism must cause countries to fight with one another, since often wars are fought over land. I mean, even today, if you look at some of the conflict out into the Middle East, it is, while it is partially based on religious beliefs, it is also spurred from those religious beliefs as to who is the rightful owner, which group of people truly belong in that particular area, because it is stated in their religious text that that is where they come from. They are the rightful people. So often in our history, you kind of look at, everyone kind of believes that it's theirs. It's not just to the Middle East, it's everywhere. Most of the wars is over who believes that that land should be theirs. All right, so I want you to, in your notebook, I want you to add these two definitions, because we're going to really focus on patriotism and nationalism. So put patriotism in there. It's a love for and devotion and loyalty to one's nation. And then nationalism, feeling that people have of being proud of their country, often with the belief that it is better than other countries. And that should be belief, not believe. Again, finding typos, so let me fix this while we're in here. Ironically, later on in your social studies, I don't know which quarter you'll be in, you will talk about, if you haven't already, talk about patriotism and nationalism. So maybe we've kind of helped you in that regards too. So take a moment in your notebooks, if you will, kind of answer these two questions I have down here. How can you compare the relationship between patriotism and nationalism? So how are they similar? And maybe how are they different even? Because they are slightly different and they do have a relationship. There is a connection there. And then if you can, this is up to you, can you come up with a metaphor that represents your understanding of the relationship? Remember, metaphor is when you're comparing two things. You just don't use like or as. It's almost a statement of saying it is. So maybe you came up with things like patriotism is like being full after a good meal. Like, you know, you really love something and you're like, yeah, that was like Thanksgiving dinner. I know some of you love Thanksgiving dinner, or like a holiday dinner, or a special dinner, a birthday dinner, or something. And you're like, can't wait to have that. And then you love it so much and you get so full and you feel so good and you kind of feel miserable, but you still love it. But so patriotism is like that feeling of being full after a good meal. But nationalism is like eating so much that you're sick. So patriotism is like, oh, that was good. That was a good meal. I feel full, but I didn't go too bored. Nationalism, you went overboard. You ate so much that in the end, you couldn't even really fully appreciate the meal because you got sick. Or you ate too much candy after Halloween. Or too much popcorn at the movie. So you love the movie popcorn, love all the butter and the salt, but you ate too much that you end up having a stomach ache. Does it make sense? So patriotism is kind of like you have this love and devotion. It's good. It's the status quo. Nationalism, you went over the top. You went too far. Pull back those reins. All right, so this is your deep dive task. And it's a small one. So I want you to create this little, I don't think there's a handout. Yeah, there's not one. No, there is a handout. I think I've created this handout for you. So you do need this handout. You don't have to put this in your notebook. You're going to pretend that you're one of the people that's joining or enlisting in the war. So I want you to kind of put yourself into those shoes real quick. And you're writing a letter to your mom, to your mother, or your loved one. But in this case, you're going to pretend that you're writing to your mother. And you're going to come up with a reason why you are joining the war. But I want you to, or enlisting in the military so that you can go fight the war. Here's the thing though. Your perspective, your reasoning must be as if you are a true patriot or if you're a nationalist. So remember, patriotism, you have a love and devotion for your country. Nationalist, you went overboard. And this thing's going to be down here in the corner, so just roll with me. So figure that out. Come up with at least a sentence or two. But one, you have this love of our country, and then think of the extremist, the one that goes over the top. And then you're done for the day.